So today I wanted to talk about this game of catch-up that we play on the roads. Uh, like, I for one am someone who's not entirely always trying to play catch-up, if you know what I mean. There are times that I do want to play catch-up, but when I'm driving in the city, it's definitely not. This is a comment I always get. The moment there is some gap in front of you, I always get the comment, if you're gonna drive slow, just drive towards the side so that others can overtake you. You should always close the gap in front of you. And I'm a bit mixed about that. Like, I don't feel that you always have to close the gap in front of you. Sometimes you can, sometimes you just don't close the gap in front of you. Does that make sense? Yeah, I feel like it's perfectly fine. Like, you're not always supposed to be in a rush to close the gap in front of you. Sometimes you can opt to maybe not close the gap. I am thinking about examples where if there are speed limits, you might be going at the speed limit, but if you have a bit of a gap in front and you're already at the speed limit, why do you want to go faster and risk yourself a traffic fine? But also, why do you want to risk yourself just safety in general? You know what I mean? It's sometimes okay to catch up. It's sometimes perfectly fine not to catch up. And you can't really blame people for not wanting to catch up. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people are just in too much of a rush that there's always this pressure for people to like catch up, but it doesn't make sense. Like, what do you want to do after catching up? Aren't you just being impatient on the road? Like, this gap in front of me, I will eventually catch up, but I don't need to like speed up and close the gap in front of me. Sometimes I do choose to, depending on the scenario, and sometimes I'll choose not to, depending on the scenario. And I feel like that should be called for. I just get so many comments going, if you're going slow and there's a vehicle going faster than you behind, then you need to make room for them always. And I'm like, but this is a shared road after all. This is a shared space after all. Like, public roads that I'm talking about, we all pay our taxes. We're all entitled to it equally. We're not entitled to it any more or any less. Government vehicles are not entitled to it any more or any less either. So that's just what I'm thinking about. How can some people say, hey, move out of the way? Unless you're in an ambulance, like, oh my god, don't get me started. But if you're an ambulance, you better move away for an ambulance. Like, there is no not moving out of the way for an ambulance, especially if it's carrying a patient and the sirens are blaring and everything. But other than that, why do you always have to catch up? Like, what is the rush is what I'm not getting. Do people not leave on time from their homes? Do people not, I don't know, like, why? And so I'm just so like confused about this whole, you gotta leave a lot of space, or you gotta let others overtake you the moment you're slower than the person behind you. Yeah, it does make sense. It is irritating. Like, if the average speed on a certain road is 40, 50 kilometers per hour and you're traveling like a dead, dull 15, 20, then I get it. That's being a bore. But if you're already traveling like at 40 and the speed limit is 50, then what the hell? Like, I just don't understand that. Some people are just in such a rush, like this guy here. Come on, man, you could have just waited. I also get comments from two-wheelers saying, you're in a car, you don't know the pain of like having to put down 2 feet every now and then. You don't have to balance yourself in the car. And to that, yes, I understand that. I'm stationary in a car and I do not need to like stop and put my foot down. I'm also in an automatic car where I don't need to like care about gears and all of that, clutch control. But the thing is, when you're driving something, when you're riding something, if you are too lazy to put your foot down and stop at traffic or stop for an oncoming vehicle or any of that, pedestrian, whatever, should you even be riding a motorbike or I don't know, anything if you're like lazy to stop and drop your foot? Like, I personally ride a scooter too. And when I need to put my foot down, I put my foot down. I'm not gonna like impatiently overtake and cram myself in places where I can't. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you do that? But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I see a lot of people always commenting, hey man, move aside if you're going slow, or like that gap in front, you need to close it, like with the vehicle in front I have right now. And I'm just like, I don't want to close it. One, I could already be doing the speed limit, and two, even more importantly, this could be my braking and judgment distance. The moment you put your foot on the brake in any vehicle, a car, a bike, a truck, your vehicle has momentum, which is basically mass and velocity. So the more velocity, the more faster you're traveling, the more energy your vehicle has. And just by pressing the brake, your vehicle won't come to a stop. There's a braking distance. Like, usually vehicles take at least 30 meters to stop from 100 kilometers per hour. So from city speeds like 30, 40 kilometers, it'll still take 10 to 15 meters, bike and cars. I'm not making any distinguishment here. And that means if I press the brake here, I'll stop right in front there. I'm not going to stop right here. And then you also have to take into account human error and human reaction time. Some people, they just react quicker and they can slam on the brakes. Some are a bit slower, and slower due to a number of different reasons. Sometimes it's slower because they're old, they might be sick. Some people just have slower reflexes, and you can't blame everyone for that. You know what I mean? Sometimes it just happens. And yeah, there's like a second gone in reaction thinking time, and then there is finally your actual braking happening. So I slam my brakes here, I stop right there. And the distance I generally choose to keep in front, the amount of distance is very correlated to my speed. The more speed I'm at, the more distance I'm going to require to stop, and the more I'm going to leave a gap in front. I just don't get why people are always like, hey, you need to close the gap in front. No, I don't want to close the gap in front. It's not safe to always close the gap in front. You have to be smart about closing the gap in front. If you drive bumper to bumper traffic at like 60 kilometers per hour, and supposedly it's a bus in front of you and they just stop, no side light, nothing, to pick up a passenger, you're going to get into a bad accident, my friend. And that's not cool. You never want to get into any sort of accident on the road. No one purposely ever wants to get in any accident on the road. And so that just brings me back to the whole question of, it's okay, you can leave a bit of a gap in front of you. You can use your judgment, be smart on the road, be safe on the road. That's honestly what I want to say today. And I'll see you on the next one.